Today we will discuss our next topic of I think learning and sharing on the VCN side. And today I think we will go in more detail on the VCN and what are the underneath components on the VCN, primarily on the subnets, that how to configure subnets and all that. If you're new to this one, that's learning and sharing, and a VCN is a software-defined network that you set up in the Oracle Cloud Infrastructure data centers in a particular region, the region which you have, or subscribe to that. And a subnet is a subdivision of a VCN. And if you see here, we have created a one already VCN, and now we will talk about the subnets. So now, for example, these are the subnets already created. So let's go into the subnets. And before I think from a subnet point of view, just to recap on the VCN, a VCN have a multiple overlapping CIDR blocks that can change after you create the VCN. And subnets contain virtual networks, virtual network cards, that's VNets basically, which attach to the instances. And each instance consists of contiguous range of IP addresses that do not overlap with other subnets in the VCN. Now, each subnet in a VCN consists of a contiguous range of IP4 addresses that do not overlap with other subnets in the VCN, which we have created, for example. And these example can be 172.16.1.0/24. The first two IP4 addresses and the last in the subnet CIDR are reserved by the networking service. If you talk about from that point, so the first one and the last one is reserved by the networking service, and you can change the size of the subnets after creation. So now subnets acts as a unit of configuration. All instances in a given subnets use the same route table, security list, and DHCP options. And we will go later on with the security options and DHCP options. Now, if you talk about on the subnet point of view, subnets can be either public or private. If you see here, one is private and one is public. And the choice of public or private depends upon, when we create the subnets. Now let's go and open subnets, and we will go through each step on that one. But it's just to give you, and each compute instance is residing in a subnet. Uh, and we can say that each instance is attached to a virtual network interface card, which is VNEC normally is called, and which in turn resides in the subnet and enables a network connection for that instance. Now, originally subnets were designed to cover only one availability domain in a region. They were all availability domain specific, but now, which means then the subnet resources were required to reside in a particular availability domain. But now, subnets can be either AD availability domain specific or regional. So you have a choice, to while you creating it. For example, if you see it's availability domain specific or a regional subnet specific. And both types of subnets can coexist the same in the same VCN, and that's how the subnets are called. From the AD specific, what Oracle recommends is from AD specific subnets, Oracle recommends using regional subnets, and this is also mentioned in the standard documentation if you will go, and I will put it in the show notes. And because they are more flexible, they make it easier to efficiently divide your VCN into subnets while also designing for availability domain failure. So all these are easy to discuss and see it. And when we create the subnet resource as a compute instance, such as we will choose the availability domain. Now let's go to and I think we will come back to the details. Now let's create how to create the subnet. For example, we are going to create a subnet. Maybe we have to start from again. Let's create subnet. We'll put the subnet name, and then we need to choose the compartment, in which compartment it needs to be created. It's availability, regional specific, or availability domain specific. Now we need to choose the CIDR block, and for example, the CIDR block this is what I choose it based on the VCN's or subnet range. And Now it's a route table. So there are route table, default route tables are already created it. And the question is, do we need to, you know, assign it, or what we need to do for that one, and what we need to choose on that one. And the route tables, basically the VCN uses virtual route tables to send traffic out of the VCN. For example, to the internet, to your on-premise network, or to a peered VCN. These virtual routes tables have rules that look and act like a traditional network rule. And you might already be familiar with that one, but each rule specifies the destination CIDR block and the target, the next hop for any traffic that matches that CIDR. And that, I think, we will go in more detail with the route tables and what are the basic routing in your VCN. For example, the primary routing scenario is for sending a subnet's traffic to destination outside the VCN. A subnet has a single route table of your choice associated with it, and all VNets in that subnets are subject to the route, to the rules in the route table. That we will, and traffic within the VCN is automatically handled by the VCN local routing. So no rules required on that one. But these are the basically what is the route tables, the standard, the default one available. You wanna pick it up, it will change it from the compartment, and for example, it creates by default one route table for this VCN, and we will discuss in more detail. Similarly, there are a private or public subnet. You need to choose it, and now the DNS. On the DNS side, this option is available only if you provided a DNS label for the VCN during creation. And the option is required for assignment of DNS host names to hosts in the subnet. And if if you plan to use the VCN's default DNS feature called the Internet and VCN Resolver, if the checkbox is selected, then you can specify DNS label here. For example, is it showing you PVT apps, or you want to choose and even you can have your some corresponding DNS domain name for the subnets. And we will discuss in a more detail the DNS in for the virtual cloud network, how it used. And these are their choices basically. So there are two types upon that one. One is Internet Resolver, and these are the Oracle provided options into two parts. So when we say Internet Resolver, lets instances resolve host names that are publicly published on the internet. The instance do not need to have internet access by way of either on an internet gateway or a connection to your on-premise network, such as IPsec VPN connection through DRG. And VCN Resolver lets instances resolve host names which you can assign of other instances in the same VCN. And by default, new VCNs, we will create use the Internet and VCN Resolver. And if you're using the network IP, this choice, maybe we can work on it and choose it. Custom Resolver can also be there, but we will talk later on. And domain specific, then DHCP option. Similarly, on the DHCP options, where you can use these set of DHCP options associated with the subnet. And if you have enabled it on the compartment selection under DHCP option compartment, you must specify the compartment that contains the set of DHCP options. That's how. And then the tags. Tags, again, there are different types of tags if you're not aware about it. And it's based on the permissions. If you have permission, you can create the tags and tagging, and these will help to even, based on the permissions and the costing, a number of areas are there in the tags which you can create to for example, if you're creating instance for ERP, and then you maybe compartment is named with the tag on the ERP, then you will choose that VCN subnet everyone belongs to that compartment or that tag, so that's easily to manage. Now let's create subnet, and it started provisioning it. Now the key point, which I believe, is there are three components by default which are created, and that was discussed during even in the last our session when we created the VCN. That VCN has, and that's the private, we have created its apps, the security list, and then it has also a route table and security list, and that one. Now, regarding the security list, basically the virtual firewall feature is to control the traffic or at the packet level, and it has two virtual firewalls, which is security list and the security list groups, and which will later on we will discuss. Now, the security list is this is the original type of virtual firewall offered by the networking service, and security lists act as a virtual firewall for your compute instances and all other kind of resources. A security list consists of a set of ingress and egress security rules that apply to all the VNets in any subnet that the security list is associated with it. If you will, for example, open a tab, and if you see here, these are ingress rules or egress rules, you will add it. These are ingress rules, and then these are the egress rules. And security rule, each VCN, we know it that each VCN comes with the default security list, and that has several default rules for essential traffic. And we cite, for example, all protocols, all traffic for all ports, and similar ingress rule is TCP traffic for ports 20 SSH remote access. So these are the default rules created, and you can create your own rules on that one. And the default security rules list will primarily comes with the stateless ingress rule, which allows the TCP traffic on destination port 22, for example, this one, which we cite here, and from authorized source IP addresses at any source port. And if you see from here, we put any source port, it could come. And this rule makes it easy for you to create a new cloud network and public subnet launch a Linux instance or any other, immediately, and use the SSH to access it. Then there are stateful ingress rule. Another one is ICMP basically. So this traffic type 3 code 4, if you see from type code 3 and 4, and this allows from authorized source IP addresses. This rule enables your instance to receive path MTU traffic, MTU discovery fragmentation message. And then we have a stateful ingress rule ICMP. Another one is ICMP traffic. Again, that one is based on basically VCN CIDR block. And this rule makes it easy for your instance to receive connectivity error messages from other instances within the VCN. And then if you will go, then stateful egress rules, if we will see over here, this one has a one default rule, which is, allow all traffic. And this will allow instances to initiate traffic of any kind to any destination. And you can see from a public IP addresses and all that. And VCN has a configured internet gateway if you want to access outside. Then also on, because stateful security rules are use connection tracking, the response traffic is automatically allowed regardless of any ingress rule. And then we will go in more detail on that one in the later. That's how. And if you can you want to add it, for example, here you will choose the egress rule, you choose the destination side or IP protocol. If you see from here, source port range, destination port range, and destination, and then you will add it. Similarly, if you come back to ingress rule and you want to add ingress rule, if you see from a CIDR block or service or CIDR, the range, IP protocol, which one you want to use it, port, a destination port range, or a source port range. That's how we cover today, I think, so much, primarily on the subnet point of view, that what are the roles of subnets in the VCN, and then we discussed route table, basically private, public, subnets, then security lists. All that's just to, and then we need to go back even on some, even if you see the route tables, even here, these are default route tables, and that's the same. If you create it, add a new route table, you need to choose it, okay, which route table you want to put it, and then it goes and you will create it on that one. So there are so many things other which we need to discuss, even internet gateway, dynamic network. We will come back to that one in the short next video. And at the end, I think it's just to learn and explore with each other for to how to create and it also enforcing me to basically I'll do all these activities as a hands-on. Thank you. We'll talk in the next slide or in the next video.